All right. This is the IEPPV software class. I think this is our first software class we're doing. We have Steve Brazill, we have Frederick Van Johnson as one of our co-hosts, and myself, Troy Miller. We're going to be sharing some of our favorite pieces of software that we use on a daily basis. Couple of them are new to me, so I may stumble through them. Others I use a lot, and I know that Steve and Frederick are the same, where this is software that we're excited about anyway. So this is more of a way for us to show you something, get some Q&A going, dialogue amongst ourselves. You guys as well, feel free to chat in, and we'll answer what we can. Steve Brazill, live concert photographer, geek extraordinaire. He's got...
He used the word extraordinaire. I'm just that alone.
I saw that hand come up, and I wasn't sure where that was going to go.
Yeah. Nah.
Steve, why don't you tell everybody how they can find out a little bit more about you if they want to start?
I'm a live music photographer. You can find me on Instagram at Steve Brazill. Same as the country Brazil, but 2 L's. You can find me on Twitter at Steve Brazill. You can find me on Facebook at Steve Brazill Photography. I do a podcast. Used to do it with Frederick's network. Hopefully at some point that'll be on its own. I'm working on that now. So follow me on social media and you'll see what I end up doing.
Awesome. And then Frederick Van Johnson, as some of you already know, he is the host and founder of thisweekinphoto.net and a new
.com.
TWiP. What's that?
You said .net. It's .com.
I'm sorry.
Details.
Two of us are professionals at speaking on a microphone and stuff, and this is not the guy. I have notes, but I can't even read them. But also the TWiP Pro Community, which is a new thing that you've started. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about that and how everybody can find you?
Yeah, I'm excited. Well, all roads lead to thisweekinphoto.com. That's where I am. You can email me there at frederick@thisweekinphoto.com. And that is where our community is. If you go to thisweekinphoto.com and click on TWiP Pro in the menu, it'll take you to our sales page for the TWiP Pro community. It is a tiny community on purpose. It's actually not that small anymore. We're growing pretty fast, and it is designed, the way that I tell people is, it is designed to be kind of the airport lounge versus the terminal lounge in the airport, where you go in and instead of all the craziness that is Facebook, it is a bunch of adults and smart people that just love photography, that are talking and sharing stuff and hanging out with each other and all that. So
yeah, it's fun.
That's what that is. And then This Week in Photo obviously is a podcast YouTube show, and we're about to launch another show really soon. I will tell you about a little bit later if Troy gives me an opportunity. But it's a kind of a big deal that may surpass a lot of the stuff that I've already done. So
you want to make an official announcement now to those watching? Is that what you want to do?
I may do that.
You have the floor. You have 30 seconds.
I can't do it. What are you, Steve Jobs?
No, we'll do it. We'll do it later. Because I'm excited.
We'll do it later. Don't put me on the spot. I got performance anxiety.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So basically, like I said in the beginning, what we're going to do is we're each going to show you a little bit about what we like about a piece of software. We're not going to teach you how to use it. We're not going to go through it in detail, but we're going to highlight some things, give you some excitement about it. And then we're going to switch to another speaker, a different topic, and we're just going to kind of work our way through these things. I'm going to get started. So what we're going to do is I'm going to share my screen. All right. Perfect. So now I'm sharing my screen. Now, just for my other hosts, so that you guys are aware, you are being recorded on screen as well. So, don't do anything you don't want recorded.
No nose picking or anything like that?
No nose picking or making fun of Troy. Well, okay, there can always be a little bit of that. So, so Capture One is my favorite piece of software. It's on the top of my list. I use Lightroom as well, but Capture One is really the big go-to for me. And I'm converting all my wedding workflow to Capture One, but right now I'm still in Lightroom a little bit. So I know both of them pretty well. One of the things about Capture One, I'm just trying to look at my notes here just so I don't forget where I'm at, is color selection and layer masking that you can do in each image. Let me show you this real quick. Are you guys able to see that? Frederick and Steve,
Yep.
You guys can see my screen? Okay. All right. So one of the big things in here is you have your normal adjustments like anything else, but here's where, for me, this is where Capture One really is awesome. I can come in and I can select this color range using that advanced color picker there. And we'll just do a couple little things. I'm not going to have to explain a whole lot. But what that did is, see how it selected just the sky? Now that's great because I can go in and make little adjustments to just the sky, which we can do in a lot of other pieces of software. But here's where it gets awesome. I can create a layer mask from that selection. Now that's layer up here, which means any adjustment, any tool, anything that I want to do, I can adjust clarity just to that piece. So I can bring out the clouds. I can do saturation if I want, just a little saturation. I can do some more structure. And I'm working with that just separately for that color range. So it has an enormous amount of possibilities there. Here's one when I was in Hawaii that the sand was coming up. Let me get, oops, a little bit too much contrast. See, if you look at just to the left of the surfer there, the boogie boarder, you can see that there's some brown color in the water, and that's just the sand that's being pulled up. And I was kind of bummed for a lot of these shots. I'm like, man, I want to get rid of that. Well, use that option, pick that color picker, grab that tone. The smoothness sort of is like how broad around the color it picks. And then here we'll pick the full range in that color saturation as well. And I'm going to shift the hue. And then if I select in that color again, it'll only shift 30 degrees in the hue. If I select that area again, do that again, and I shift the hue again. Now that brown has been shifted into the teal color palette, and I've gotten rid of that hue. So many uses for this. It's fantastic. The other big thing with Capture One is its tethering ability. That's amazing. It's fast. The layer masking and the tools, you can have something up to 30 plus layers, that it may be more now up here. So you can layer and layer and layer and layer. So it's one step closer to Photoshop, staying in the RAW without having to go that far. And with that, I am going to move over to Steve. Actually, let me stop my screen sharing.
I've got to play with Capture One.
I keep saying that, and then it's on my list. I just haven't gotten to it. And Troy, every time I talk to Troy, I'm like, I got to go get that thing. And
it's one of those things where you feel like as soon as I dive into it, okay, I'm going to need time without interruptions to just bury myself in it. And I don't find the time. But everything I see on Capture One is just, now I do have a question, that shot right there.
Yep.
That you have up. You selected the sky by selecting a color range. My question to you is, how does it do? You've got right here a sandstone edge. That looks like red rock when we were there.
Mm-hmm.
You've got here a sandstone type edge, but if it's got trees and stuff like that, how well does it feather the edge of that selection along something that is not, for example, easy to select against? There could be a pine tree sticking up, but blue is peeking through.
It actually does a pretty good job. Like right here, if we pick around this one, let's see how it does. It's kind of struggling with that there. I don't have a really good example. It does an amazing job, actually. I mean, the more defined the edge is, the better it does. So like this red area, if I want to select that red area.
Yeah, there's a good test. How well does it do? And adjust that.
It does pretty good. And you can see anything black and white means it didn't select. And here's a better way to look at it. If I come in here and say create layer mask, and then I go, I think it's M. Okay, that's what it masked. But here's the thing. I can tune the color selection when I select it, or I can grab my paintbrush and then go to erase.
Right, like a normal layer mask. Okay.
Yeah, and I can just erase it. So there is an enormous amount of control in here.
It's almost like a Lightroom and Photoshop power, but...
That's what I was going to ask, Troy. So why would you, devil's advocate, why would you use Capture One to do this sort of thing when, if you have the chops, you could do it in Photoshop? Why would you go into Capture One to do this?
Well, because we're working with raw data, right? So in raw data, I have more information. So like this sky looks blown out. If I was to export this into Photoshop, I wouldn't be able to recover that data. I would have to
Yeah, that's
create
true.
an exposure layer
Yep.
in order to do that.
Oh,
where
it's
in here,
Photoshop with True Rock. Oh, wow.
yeah, let me reset that image.
Wow.
Yeah, so it gives you a lot of that control. The other thing that it does that I just had to pop back in here and show you. Let me go into a portrait because this is really cool. When you're calling, here we go. All right, so when you're calling something and you want to know if it's in focus or not, you just hit the focus tool, and anything that's green is pretty much sharp. So in this case, you can see like right around her eye, I got a little bit, it's soft because she was moving, but that focus peaking, it's not focus peaking, it just shows a focus mask, will tell you if that image is in focus or not. And it works whether you're in thumbnail mode or not. So it doesn't care. So like all these, see all the green on all of these, that's telling me wherever that is, that's in focus.
Jeez.
So it's super fast. And that's
so then why would you use, or well, let me rewind. What are we looking at price wise? I'm on their page now, and it's a free download for a trial. It's 325 megabytes to download it for a 30-day trial. What are we looking at if I want to buy it?
I think it's $300 or something, right, Trey?
Yeah, it's
Steven says $299.
It's like $300 if you buy it, and you get like so many licenses of that, or you can do a month-to-month subscription, which keeps you up to date. And then John just asked a question about are those changes in Capture One non-destructive, and they are, and that's why they're so amazing, is because you're doing all of that on the raw files. So when you output that, you've captured all that raw information as you're tweaking and playing with those layers and pushing it. So you could imagine, depending on your discipline of photography, you could soften the background, you could blur that, then you could darken it, desaturate it, change colors and hues. Mm-hmm. It's immense. And if you go to the YouTube channel, the Capture One YouTube channel, and just click on videos, they do like a new video every week. So it's very, very well promoted by them. I mean, there's a lot of education there.
Troy, did the interview I did with Josh Haftel from Adobe solidify your love of Capture One or shake?
Wait a minute. Tee it up. Hit it now.
Slow motion, underhanded pitch.
Yeah.
It really confirmed for me that Capture One is where I want to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
See, you see how considered and political that response was? When I talked to Troy Miller offline when no one was watching, his hands are flailing in the air. He's running around talking about.
Yep, the Troy we know and love.
Oh, man. Well, I have this little box in the video I have to stay in, I want to stay in the box. Yeah. No, I love Capture One. And I just wish I could show everybody, everybody download it, run the demo, run it for 30 days, play with it. Try not to think Photoshop. I mean, Lightroom, when you play with it, try to just do it the way they do it. You're not going to find black and shadow sliders. You're going to have to use levels. But once you've done it for a while, you're like, oh, this is brilliant.
I love what Nick just said, by the way, in the chat, that their raw converter is also better than Adobe's.
Like I said, we could really do this for a long time, but most definitely.
I wonder what that means, though. I hear that a lot about different.
I hear it a ton. Renee says the same thing.
But I hear it about Aurora. I hear it about Capture One, that it's better than Adobe's. What does that mean?
Adobe's is bad.
But what does bad mean? That's what I'm trying to understand. What's a bad raw conversion that doesn't pull detail out of shadows or highlights
The best
better
way
dynamic range. Usually a better converter has better dynamic range. So yes, shadows and highlights are part of that.
Okay. But let's not use shadows and highlights. Let's look at it as fidelity, right? Like we've all heard a good stereo system. We've heard a bad stereo system. And it's not that one's louder than the other. It's that we can hear the subtleties in that. And I think that with Capture One, you're able to see the finer, subtle details in highlights and shadows and the transitions therein that really makes it feel like it's a better image. And in print, I can see it too. And when you consider print being an 8-bit sRGB, you wouldn't think that you could see that, but you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Nice.
I just wonder if it's like Fuji, like the Fuji look. People that shoot Fuji rave about the Fuji look, or the Hasselblad look. And I even asked the Hasselblad guys, how do you quantify, what is that? What is the Hasselblad look? And they're like, oh, well, it's kind of like you just got to know it when you see it. And I'm like, I don't.
It's going to be hard to play, but I can tell you that if you take images that you've edited in Lightroom, bring them into Capture One, your muscle memory, especially if you edit a lot, your muscle memory is going to be like, oh, wow, look at those highlights. Those are brilliant. The clouds are beautiful. I made my decision when I was in Hawaii for 10 days, and I went and shot 10,000 images, and I edited everything in Lightroom and everything in Capture One side by side. And every time I was done, I'm like, oh my God, I can see, look at the reflection, look at the sparkles, look at the, so that's why I'm in love with Capture One. And then there's a depth of control that we haven't even touched on yet that I don't want to distract anybody from, because they're all smart guys and they're going to go play with it. And we want to move on to Steve. Steve is going to talk about 1Password and Phone Mechanic, right? I mean, are you queued up for that?
Yeah.
Steve? You good?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm queued up, ready to go.
Go ahead and take control of the screen.
Sure. I'm going to share my screen. And first of all, I'm going to talk about 1Password. And for those of you that are not familiar with 1Password, you can see the 1Password window and everything, right? You can see the desktop?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, Steve.
Okay, good. So for those of you not familiar with 1Password, here's the idea of 1Password. And actually, I'm going to stop the screen sharing while we're doing this, just so that I'm looking at the camera while I'm talking. If you're not familiar with the concept of 1Password, here's the idea. One of the biggest problems nowadays from a security point of view is that most people use the same password everywhere that they go. And large companies, Target, a teen company, a teen management company for parents, just had all of their stored Apple IDs on an Amazon web server in plain text, publicly available. Well, if you're using the same email and the same password that you do for your Apple account that you do for everything else, you're vulnerable, because if Adobe gets hacked, which they have been in the past, that's out in the wild. All those credentials are currently out in the wild. So from a security point of view, there's two things that you really, really should do. Number one, don't reuse your passwords. Because if one gets out, they simply, I love Frederick's eyes on that one. If your password gets out, if your password in your email combination gets out, they'll simply go use it somewhere else. And that brings us to the biggest tip to me on email security or password security, and that is, most people, I've literally had clients of mine, I'm a network engineer by trade, I've literally had clients of mine say, yeah, but that's just my email password. Well, if I go to your bank and I know your email address, and I type in your email address and say, I want to reset the password, that password reset goes to your email. So if I get your email password and I have access to your email, I can reset every password that you have. So that's one of the most critical passwords that you can possibly have. So that brings us to 1Password. And what 1Password is a management system that lets you store all of your passwords, generate passwords that are complex and hard to break, but still have them secure and accessible at the same time. The name says it all. I have a vault here. In fact, I actually have a bunch of different vaults you'll see up here. I can watch all my vaults, just the primary, my wife and I, one that's shared with my wife and me and my son, so that if we die in a plane crash, he has access to things. And I even created one just for this class. In here, I can go in and I can see all items, favorites, just my logins. But because it's a secure system, I get into this with 1Password, one master password that should be complex, gets me into my vault. And because of that security, I can store credit cards, secure notes, social security numbers, IDs. I can tag things. So I tagged some with IEPPV. I tagged some with education. I tagged some with lowercase, so that you can see that when you tag, always use the same case, because they're seen as differently. They're case sensitive. And one of the best things about this software, and the reason I want everybody to start using it, is this stuff down here at the bottom. I've created situations here so that it will find it. So Watchtower, will tell you if you have a password in here in an email combination that's vulnerable, because they know about all the security breaches and passwords that have been shared on the dark web. They'll tell you if your password is out there. They'll tell you, for example, this IEPPV user test user 3, it's telling me it's under a weak password. The reason is, if you look over here on the right, I can copy the username. Here's the password. I can copy it, or I can reveal it, or I can even reveal it in large type on the screen. And it's IEPPV. So it knows it's a weak password. It will even tell me if I've duplicated passwords. User 2 and user 2 copy both have the exact same password. Now, they are complex passwords, but you can see the password pop up, right?
Yeah.
That's 24 characters, but it knows that they're duplicated. That's the beauty of the system. So how does it come into play in real life? Let me jump over to a web browser. On this web browser here, this is my stevebrazill.com. It's a WordPress site, and I've created a user. I go to this site, and if you look up in my menu bar up here, there's a little key lock right here. And that pops down, and notice it, of all the users that I've got this many users in there. You can see I've got 5 users. It knows this one user belongs to this website. I can click it, and it will put it in the box. But an easier way is this. When you go to the website, on my keyboard for a Mac, it's Command / and it automatically
ever.
say that again.
It's the best feature
ever. My God!
Because you can go to any website, Command / enter, boom,
and
you're in with your password.
And so there, it filled it in. As you saw, that's a 24-character password that I don't have to remember. And if I click log in, it will log me right in to WordPress. But that brings us to what happens if you go to a site. Here's another old website of mine I don't use anymore. What happens if you have more than one account on a site? For example, on Amazon, my wife may have an account. I've got the credentials. I've got my credentials. I might have IEPPV's credentials. Well, if you do that and you hit Command /, it pops this up showing you all the different options that use this website. And I can simply say, I want this user. It'll fill it in, and it'll log me in. And that's basically the idea of 1Password. It's a great little utility, but here's the thing. Sometimes you go to a site and you're creating a new user account. It's got a password generator with a recipe of whatever you want, including, and this is key, people hate characters. And people have found now through tests that really, like in a network environment, this type of password has always been considered to be complex and secure. But as Nick will attest to, who's in here silently as well, what people have found is people tend to use the same password over and over because they're so hard to remember, or they write them down and stick them on a Post-it note on their screen. I've literally seen this. Well, these are easier to remember. You can tell it, I want to generate 4 words separated by hyphens, random words. So Armada, nab, unduly input. That's very secure, but a user might be able to read it. So that's basically 1Password. Great utility, great tool. Can't recommend it enough. And just so that you know, Troy, don't let me forget, but I've done on my stevebrazill.com, I've done a web page that has links to all the software that I'm talking about, and I can give that out at the end.
Oh, okay.
All right. So that's the idea of 1Password. Before I move on, did you want me to do Photo Mechanic now? Or first of all, I guess the question would be, does anybody have any questions on 1Password?
Yeah, I'm answering.
I do.
First.
I have a question.
Okay. What's the question?
So why is it so bad to have your passwords on the
Well,
let's get rid of that.
I will give you actually, you want to know what's funny? I didn't turn autofocus off. I will give you an exact reason why that's bad. So I was consulting a company that called me in, and the problem that they had was they had an employee whose time card had been changed. But the person that had the authority to make the change to their time card was on a week vacation.
Oof.
But their computer was on 24 hours a day, and they had their password on a Post-it note on their screen. Somebody went in, logged in on their screen.
I'll tell you. Well, I used to use 1Password. I still own it, but I use a piece of software that's a competitor to 1Password called LastPass, and it does pretty much everything you were saying that 1Password does. And I've used 1Password for years and years and years. Then I switched to LastPass. I think for the main reasons why people would switch from Mac to Windows or vice versa is because it works better with the way that my mind works. I like the way that they're designed. I like the way it's laid out. It's called LastPass.
LastPass. Yeah.
LastPass. Yeah. Yeah. I like it a lot. It's been fine, but still, yeah, you're right. All the issues that go along with using something like LastPass or 1Password, it's the same, right? You got a single point of failure, which is that one unlocked password, which you need to keep rotating. It does the same things like it will notify you if you've used the same password on multiple sites, and it won't. My LastPass will actually stop you and not let you move forward. It won't let you use, like, if you change your master password, it will not let you use a similar password within, I think, 6 months or so, or 3 months. So you can't like say, okay, I'm just going to use, this thing and the year every single time, and then you just change the year. It won't let you do that. So it saves you from yourself.
Exactly. And they're conceptually, they're the same. There's a couple of questions in here. Steven said, how do we get our passwords that are in Apple Keychain into 1Password? And the problem with Apple Keychain is there is no master password other than your device or your Apple account, really. So there's less security involved in some ways in that. There's no way to migrate them. You'd have to re-enter them, but that's not hard, because if you go to a website and LastPass or 1Password are installed, the password manager is installed. When you fill in the password, when your iCloud keychain comes up and says, do you want to fill it in? You fill it in and click submit or done. 1Password or LastPass will pop up a thing saying, hey, I see you're using a password I don't have. Do you want to store it? So it kind of makes that really, really easy. Kim asked, can you use it on more than one device? Yes, I have it on my iPad. I have it on my phone. I have it on my computers, all my computers. On phones, it's a little different because you can't do Command \. So on a phone, it's the share sheet, for example, on iOS, but it exists on all of them. Somebody else said that they switched to 1Password. Let's see. Can you compare the security of this to the password vault in, say, Chrome? Yeah. The big difference is going to be some of the added features. So Chrome has a password vault in it, similar to like an iCloud, password vault. You don't have a separate master password, right? So now effectively you've reused your device password, which for many people is 0000 to get into their phone. You've reused that. And as soon as you're in as your user, iCloud password, for example, is going to share everything. This separates that out as a separate entity with a dedicated master password just for security of all of that type of stuff. And by the way, Stephen, thanks for mentioning looking in the Q&A. I was looking at a different screen.
Yeah.
Let's photo mechanic.
Yeah, let's do that. And then, let's do that one quickly. And that way we can keep moving along. So Frederick gets his say.
One thing that scares me, just sorry, Troy, I don't want to put gum on your shoe. But one thing that scares me, Steve, about these password applications is that they're invaluable because, we can't possibly keep multi-digit military grade passwords in our heads for all these services that we need to use. But I worry about security because these passwords are in the cloud and they ostensibly will unlock my banking and everything else that is my life. And I'm trusting them to, kind of a small company that's doing a niche operation there.
Well, I'll tell you this, like, for example, you use LastPass.
Mm-hmm.
And there are security experts that I'm trying to think of the guy's name right now. And it just slipped my mind. I had it in there while you were talking and I just lost it. I'll come up with it in a second. Where LastPass has actually let them, Steve Gibson, they actually let Steve Gibson look at their source code And that's pretty amazing. Now, obviously, you have people like this, management company for parents to watch their teens, store log files on an Amazon web server in plain text and unsecured. There is always that issue. But in essence, it's still cheaper because you're going to have companies like, or not cheaper, it's still more secure. You're going to have companies like Adobe that are going to get hacked, and they have security experts. They still get hacked and your username and password get out there. At which point, all I have to do is take that database, automate brute force or using those passwords and email combinations on iTunes or Target or whatever, or your bank, and I've got you. So it's still better because it gives you the ability to generate random passwords for every account easily, access them easily. Let's be honest, all your passwords are always under one password, right?
Yeah.
For sake of conversation, if you've only got one password and you're storing them in Safari or Chrome, when you log into your computer, you've unlocked them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now that's your computer password, which most people at home, that's not secure. Mine is. My phone password is 9 characters or 10 characters.
Time for Photo Mechanic.
So, okay, sorry, Photo Mechanic. So let's jump into Photo Mechanic. And Photo Mechanic is an interesting one. Photo Mechanic is an app I originally learned about from a guy in San Diego named Alan Hess, who's a friend of mine, a concert photographer, Kelby One instructor, Photoshop World instructor. And he mentioned it to me, and it sounded interesting, but it was $150. And Lightroom does what I need. And then one day I was at Troy's, and Troy's a Photo Mechanic user, and I saw it.
You get invited to Troy's house. Wow.
Yeah, because he has cookies. Yeah.
Hey, we got Troy cookies.
I looked at Photo Mechanic at his house, and he said, play with it a little bit, and instantly was sold. It is the most amazing piece of pre-edit software to me, and that's the key in how I use it. So let me kind of show you Photo Mechanic here. Photo Mechanic is an app, and I'm going to try and watch both screens so that I get your chat.
And I wanted this to be on my list, just to everybody know I let Steve have this one.
Oh, you wanted this? You didn't say.
No, I'm giving you.
So here on my desktop, I've got a folder called IEPPV sample folder. And let me just show you. It's just a bunch of raw files and XMP. These were just copied over from Lightroom. Okay. Here's basically what happens. I copy all of my pictures to my hard drive after a shoot. And once I've got all my raw files, I grab that folder, and not what I wanted. I grab that folder and I drag it onto the Photo Mechanic icon, and Photo Mechanic will open on the wrong screen. So let's move it over here. So this is Photo Mechanic, and Photo Mechanic is really popular in two worlds: sports photography and agency shooters like Getty or Envision or AP News, things like that. And really the reason is some of the behind the scenes stuff that I actually don't use. So you can easily sort by different things. You can zoom in and make, bigger or smaller thumbnails based on what you need or want. Browse. Each folder you open opens in a separate tab, like up here where you see that it says, IEPPV sample folder. And here's basically the idea. First of all, this first image here, if I click the eye, you've got so much metadata in this program that is just nonstop on what you can put in here. And the wonderful thing about the program is that it's automated. So for a sports shooter that is shooting, let's say, the NFL, or a parent that's shooting their kid's soccer team, you can have it pre-programmed in what a player number is with their name. And you can use variables in these image descriptions to say it's number 42. And that will automatically expand to say number 42, Steve Brazill plays center field. Whatever description you have. So for people like that, or agency shooters that are shooting red carpet or concerts, they can quickly fill in names, player positions, race cars, teams, whatever they want. And you can save and just go to the next shot very, very easily. There's a lot of options to customize the program, but here's where I use it. We've all seen where when you import images into Lightroom, building previews. Troy uses smart previews. Other people use one-to-one previews. People use normal previews. And in my experience, and I'm on a late model, I mean, it is current, top-of-the-line 5K iMac. No matter what, it takes time to build the previews. And still, when I arrow right browsing through the images, it's loading. There it is. Now it's sharp. Loading. There it is. Now it's sharp. With this program, it uses the JPEGs that are embedded in your RAW file. So if I open this file here, I will get all my EXIF data. I can crop it. I can do changes. I can zoom in, see my histogram, and watch how fast I can arrow through RAW files. This one's actually been cropped. You can see the crop outline. I can arrow through these files, and they instantly load. No loading, no anything like that. They're just there. That's why I use this. And I can go through, you can see in the bottom left corner down here where it stars, and you can go through, and I've got mine set up. Troy uses colors. I'm colorblind, so I don't. I use a star system. So I will go through. The other night when I shot a band, I came home with 500 pictures. I'll go through here. Arrow right, okay, 1 star, arrow right, 1 star. I'll do a bunch of 1 stars. And then when I'm done doing the 1 stars, down here in the bottom right, you can filter by star or color. So I'll say, you know what? Only show me the 0 stars, or only show me the 2 stars, 3. I've got 1 3-star, 4 stars. So when I'm done, what I'll do is I'll tell it, okay, eliminate all the 0 stars. Those are going to be deleted. Now I'll do a second pass. I'll go through, this one's 2. Now that I've got it narrowed down on my window, I'll do 2 stars. Then I'll do a third pass, 3 stars. And anything 3 stars or over, all I do is I will highlight what I want, and I can drag those right down onto my Lightroom icon, and it will auto import them into Lightroom. That really is what I use Photo Mechanic for. Speed culling. It's the fastest culling system I have ever used.
Yep, very fast.
So yeah, and if you've used it, you'll know what I mean. Photo Mechanic also integrates with Photo Shelter nicely. That's true. It does a lot of things. In fact, Photo Mechanic has automatic FTPing, which, kind of like the plugins that you can use, the extensions for Lightroom. But Photo Mechanic is tied in with services. Like I say, Getty shooters use it. High-end Sports Illustrated sports shooters use it because they can cull everything, do minor adjustments, which may be all they're allowed to do, put all the metadata in that the agency needs, and immediately FTP them to where they want. Somebody said, so you only import keepers into Lightroom? Good question. I don't know if Troy or other people do this. I'm curious, but here's what I do. Let's say that I've got 500 shots, and I narrow it down to 200 that are 1 star. That means 300 of them are going to be deleted. They're 0 stars. I've got 200. I'll go through a second pass, a third pass. I'll end up with 3 stars and above. Let's say I've only got 53 stars. Here's what I do. I will take if I'm in a pinch, meaning the person I'm shooting for, the band or the venue, need those pictures ASAP. And I don't want to wait for Lightroom to build 200 previews. I will drag those images, just those 50, into Lightroom, do what I need to do to edit them, export them, upload them, and deliver them to the client. And then in Lightroom, what I'll do is, and I'm bringing Lightroom up right now just to show you in case you don't know this.
Okay, 1 minute.
This is one of my favorite features of Lightroom, actually, is afterwards. There we go. Afterwards, all I'll do, I've got 50 shots in here. I'll right-click the folder and say synchronize folder. And it'll go, oh, I see 150 shots you don't have in here. Do you want to import them? Yes, I do. And it imports them, and I'm done. That's pretty much it.
Yep, it's
that is Photo Mechanic and 1Password, my 2 big apps.
Before we leave that, I have a quick question on that.
Sure, go ahead.
Why is it that Adobe? So you mentioned the main thrust of Photo Mechanic is that it looks inside that RAW file and gets the pre-built JPEG that
the same one you see on the back of the camera.
You see on the back of the camera. Why is it that, and I've been hearing this since I worked at Adobe, that photo mechanic is speed, it's fast, it's for people, it's for the demographics.
Wait a minute. They talk about it in Adobe?
Yeah. So I'm wondering, why do you guys think, as people that use this every day, that a company like Adobe hasn't created a speed mode that just looks at the built-in JPEG versus building its own?
I can answer that for you. And well, I can't because I'm not Adobe, but I can try. Here's with the latest update that they did, which converted tons of stuff and caused some
Troy loves that update.
Oh yeah, Troy loves what that did to his preset order. So do I. One of the things that I thought I had read was that Adobe was purely working on speed. We understand that you want more speed. We're working on better preview speed. And I thought I read somewhere that they were switching to using the embedded JPEGs, which should make it as fast as Photo Mechanic. I actually thought I read that somewhere. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. But either way, I still have times. Again, this is 1 terabyte SSD, the fastest i7 you can put in an iMac. And still I have times where if I go from one image to the next in Lightroom with a right arrow key and immediately go back to the same image that I was just on, it's pixelated and I have to wait for it to load.
Yeah. That's why I use Capture One. And I will say that Capture One will go through images probably just as fast as Photo Mechanic. You got to remember Capture One.
That was my next question.
Yeah, so, I mean, you got to remember Phase One deals with 100 megapixel files. I mean, they're designed around their Phase One cameras, so Capture One is designed to handle that. I can scroll through 50 megapixel A7R Mark III, Mark II files with amazing speed, and it's so good, in fact, that I'm seriously considering not renewing Photo Mechanic when it comes up, because Capture One is that fast. And if you consider for a new buyer, Capture One is $300-ish, and Photo Mechanic's $150. If you don't need that Photo Mechanic, because Capture One does it all, that's brilliant. So definitely,
except Capture One, I don't use Capture One, but I've asked people, and this is what I've been told. Since you use it, I'm wondering if you know. And who was it that mentioned it? Steven mentioned it. Is the metadata that I talked about, right? The sports shooters and the agency shooters that are using variables to auto fill in from a text file. You can pre-program in the entire NFL roster, right?
Yeah, that's a very specific and very narrow. But Capture One doesn't do that.
Concert photographers can use it too, or red carpet shooters. It's not that narrow. I mean, it's not wedding. But it's not that narrow. There's a lot of people shooting for agencies.
Oh yeah. Well, it's just you choose the tool for the job, and
exactly. But Photo Mechanic does not do that kind of metadata extensively, right?
No, Photo Mechanic.
I mean, not Photo Mechanic. I mean, Capture One.
Yeah, it does not. No.
Yeah. Okay.
So with that, we're going to move on to Frederick Van Johnson's going to talk to us about something.
We are. You have no idea what I'm going to talk about. You nervous?
No, well, you're going to talk a little bit about your stuff.
Well, no, I'm not going to talk about that to the end. That's the cliffhanger.
That's right.
That's the cliffhanger. That's to keep people on the hook.
Let's keep her moving then,
because it's a big deal. Steven asked me to talk a little bit about Photo Lemur, because we mentioned it last night on This Week in Photo. It was my pick of the week. And I want to touch on that. The other things I'm going to touch on are all in the same category. So it's PixieSet, it's SmugMug, and Format.com, which are all, different ways to display, organize, sell, and share your images. This, however, and let me share my screen here, Photo Lemur is a small application, in contrast to what you've seen from these guys. They're talking about $150 and $300 applications. This app is $35, which is kind of cool. But let me show you what it does. Let me find it here. Okay. All right. So here's Photo Lemur. Very simple UI. I imported these 5 images in before we started so that I wouldn't have to do them. If you want to import more, where do you think you click? Import more area text up here. But what it does is, if you go to the website, photolemur.com, is what they say is it examines multiple parts of the images, the image that it's about to apply corrections to, and it it looks and dissects different parts of the image. Like it looks for faces, it looks for foliage, it looks for skies, it looks for all these different bits, separates them out, applies corrections to them, and then puts it all back together to give you a finalized image. So just to test this and put myself under the gun, I put these 5 images in here that I have not run through PhotoLeamer, and I have no idea what PhotoLeamer is going to do to these images. So we're going to learn together.
I played with it the other day because you suggested that I play with it, and I got to tell you, it was impressive.
It was pretty cool, right?
Wait
That's why I feel confident putting it, throwing these images at it. And you can throw raw files at it or JPEGs or whatever. I think these are raw files, to be honest with you. So, we'll start with, let's say, this guy.
I can't wait to see this.
Okay, so it has already done its before and after on this image. So, and it brings up the slider. So here's the before. This is the image I brought in. And if you bring this over to the left, you can see what it's doing to the sky and to the Eiffel Tower there, right? So it just pops it out, does a little bit of correction. See, it's actually correcting the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, it's correcting perspective too.
Yeah, it's doing all that. If you go to their website, it's literally doing like a ton of math just to get this stuff done.
This isn't web, right? This is a standalone app.
This is a standalone app, yeah. And then you can.
This isn't what was on the outline, and I like this.
Right. This is not on the outline. This is my
cheating.
surprise. This is my surprise. So you can take this one dial and dial back the corrections that it's applying back to original or put it back. So you can see what it's doing. See the sky popping out. And the cool thing I like about this app is that it is not heavy-handed. Like some apps, you can see, okay, this is HDR crunchy and it's done all this crazy stuff to the image. This one does kind of what you might do to an image to make it look great. Let's do another one. So here's a side shot of the Louvre here. So look at that.
Wow.
So
No, you're right about the heavy-handed. That is tasteful.
Right. You can't really tell if you didn't know. Like if you just look at it like this, you're like, okay, yes, it's an okay image. But then you slide it over, and it's like, okay, that's what I saw when I was standing next to the pyramid, right? So it's really, really cool. Now you're like, here's another one inside the Louvre here. Right.
Yeah,
so
you can batch these too. So that would be really great. Like if you've got to turn stuff around really quick. Yeah, like Steve was saying, you got to send something off, like from a shoot or something right away. You could batch them and output them, and if once you're used to it, man, you'd have that thing. They'd be looking nice right away.
Yeah, because it's all AI. You could literally, correct me if I'm wrong, you could have imported these 5 pictures, instantly turned around and said export 5, and it would just do its magic and be done.
Exactly. That's exactly
Really?
right. Yeah. Yeah, which is cool. And the interesting thing, you bring up a good point, because it's AI driven, unlike, say, a profile in Lightroom or a preset, which are heavy-handed, or LUTs, right, which are heavy-handed, and they're not really looking at the individual components of an image. They don't know that this part is sky, that part is a human, it has a face on it, this part is a building. This app does. It knows what the different pieces is. So it's going to apply different corrections on a per image basis. Let's do one more here. Let's do a couple more.
Okay, you got to do the Eiffel, the fence. I'm sorry, the Golden Gate Bridge one too.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, for sure. So here's up at Yosemite. So you can see the very subtle changes. Look at the shadows that it's opening up there.
So it doesn't recover highlights as well, though.
Well, there's no highlights to begin with there in this shot. And this shot, let me take a look here. So that particular shot is that is an old raw file from an old Canon, probably a 10D.
Wow.
It's a CRW.
Oh, so there's no dynamic range. All right. Do the bridge one.
Yeah, that is a CRW. Remember, does Canon still generate CRW files?
CR2.
CR2.
Okay. Yeah, this one's CRW. Okay, so there's Eiffel Tower or the Golden Gate. Look at that. So
look at the shadows in the grass.
Watch them open up. Look at that.
You can see dirt suddenly.
Look at that.
Now I did a couple samples with portraits, with my brides and some of my portrait stuff, and it was impressively good.
Right?
Yeah. I see. Now what I want is that tech so that when all my images come into Capture One, I want that tech to go through and tune all my images before I go through and do my final tweak.
Yeah, like a pre-edit.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you be able to do that, right?
Well, somebody, was it Steven said? Let's see here. Yeah, Steven said that it works as a plugin in Lightroom.
It does, and Photoshop. Hey, here's another shot.
Right there. But here's what I'm not seeing, and I'm curious. On their website, about halfway down, there's a lighthouse photo. The changes in that photo are dramatic.
So
and
it's
I'm
looking
not
at an image right now. This is a 24 megabyte DNG file.
This one's dramatic.
So look at this. So this is after.
Yeah, it knows it's sky, and
that is dramatic. Actually, it also dehazed a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Look at the windmills in the back.
The cool thing is it doesn't look processed to me. It looks like it just did it.
Yeah,
this is
you're
the
right.
Drone shot.
But look at the windmills in the back. They're dehazed too. It's very clean.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting banding in the sky. I'm wondering if that's just the. Are you seeing that?
That was already there. Yeah, I see
Okay.
it right there. Yeah, yeah. I can't do anything about that. But imagine, I mean, batch processing, like you guys are saying, a bunch of photos and just saying, "Hey, this is a good starting point," right? So, what a great starting point to start from.
You know, Steve, what would be interesting to see is for you to take some of your super challenging concert photos.
Oh, I'm thinking of it now.
And yeah, by the end of this by in like 30 minutes. So when I'm doing my Luminar demo, you're download that and
yeah, I'm intrigued, to say the least.
Right? I mean, it's a fun app, and it's only $35. I mean, you know.
What?
Yeah.
It's $35 for a 5-seat license.
Yeah. Steven's asking, this is much more. So what was it, Nick? Have you compared this to Perfectly Clear? Perfectly Clear is a heavy-handed, and there's a lot of adjustments, and it's not as intelligent. Like there's yeah.
Now here's an interesting image. Let's try this. This is from Vietnam. I want to try this real quick. So it's a random image with some colors in it. Let's see what it does to it.
We need some of Peter's from Papua.
Right? Yeah. Doing magic.
You got to move the mouse around because it's entertaining.
There you go.
That's pretty
Or
funny.
it'll crash my machine. All
Better
right.
than a progress bar.
Okay, there's the before.
Oh, yeah.
And there's the after. Yeah.
Wow. So nice.
And it's doing those on raw images, right?
Yeah, that's raw. That one was a RW2. So that was from a Lumix GH4. So yeah, so that's my quick first.
If I email you, the problem is a raw is I could give you. It'll work on a JPEG though, right?
Just download it. You can download it in like two. It's tiny.
Oh, is it?
Send me a JPEG. I'll do it.
Hold on.
All right.
I'll do it as Troy works.
Frederick, are you done with that?
Until Steve sends me this image for me to process real quick. Yeah.
Well, because what I can do is in the sake of time,
I got plenty of time. What are you talking about? I don't have to hang up until 7:30. We're good.
It's coming your way in about 2 seconds. I'll just text it to you.
Okay.
Just for sake of something.
All right. Let me do this real quick so Troy doesn't get angry. All right. So we're back in here. I'm waiting on the text. I don't see it.
It's delivered right now. Or it's sending right now.
Yeah, Tim. Tim, send him one of your big ones.
Oh, I see it. Okay, I got the image. Here we go.
I love Mary put photo lemur equals wow. And Tim's let's all send one.
Yeah.
Analyzing.
Brian's in here, right? I think
that's a JPEG.
That's a JPEG. I see noise. It introduced a bunch of noise in here.
Well, that's a 3200 ISO image. Yeah, but still, I can work with that. That I could take that in, color correct it, reduce the noise, and it's usable.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
And by the way, and that was a JPEG. Imagine what it could do to a RAW file.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's a magical app. And I think I was telling the owner of that app or the developer that they made a marketing mistake at pricing it at $35 or whatever, because people think it's $35 worth of AI. and it's not. You know, if you had priced it at like $150 or something, you're like, oh wow, that's amazing. But $30, you know, it's a price perception thing. So.
Yeah, 5 seats. Steven said it's 5 seats for $49.
Yeah,
so
it's downloaded now.
So the thing for me with apps like that is workflow. How do I use it in my workflow? Because you know, yeah, it's cool. Yes, it has some amazing capabilities, but how do I put it to work? And that's going to be the hard part for me, is because I've processed so many images over time for each shoot for weddings and stuff, is that I've got to get it through.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're doing this welcome special right now, 65% off. So $35 for 5 devices, full license.
Very cool. Well, everybody's downloading it right now, probably.
Yeah, it's installing as we speak.
Why not?
Watch it crash my machine mid webinar.
Great. Now nobody's going to listen to me, Frederick. Thanks for that.
I mean, you know, sorry.
No.
That's pretty cool.
No, I'm glad you
It's
threw that in.
genetic. Sorry, Troy. It's genetic.
Well, since that was sort of your bonus piece, do you want to go on to something else? Do you want to do another one?
Yeah. Let me just do a quick overview of format real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
Sharing the screen. Where are we? If I can find it. Okay, there we go. Okay. So as you can see at the top here, these are the 3 apps that I'm going to go through: dashboard or format, SmugMug / Flickr, and PixieSet. So this is format. So format is a sponsor of This Week in Photo, by the way. And they are interesting in that they are singularly focused on creating or giving you the engine to create a beautiful sort of website for your image library, or for your gallery. And that they take it a little bit further in that they allow you to create separate pages. So if you look down here, you can create pages, you can create a store, a proofing area, and a blog. So what they're going for is they don't want you on WordPress. They don't want you on SmugMug. They don't want you on all these other services. They want to build something where you can just say, hey, all my stuff is right here, and I get back to shooting. So I want to show you a little bit of what it looks like inside here. So if I go in into proofing, and I don't have any projects. So if I added a project here, this is the main thing to take away from this, is that what you see right here is basically the way the entire format thing works. You click on these and you're in here. You can add a project, name it, drop in images, and publish it. And now you can assign a price sheet to it. And now you have a proofing area. Same with the store. If I click on store, same thing. I can create a store right in here. I haven't created any yet, but if I go into, where is my design editor? Okay, so it's going to load in this little sample website that I built. So basically simple. They went out of their way to keep it simple but powerful. And I would when we look at the SmugMug and the PixieSet kind of implementations of this kind of tool, these guys take a perspective of less is more and making it a little bit more simple. SmugMug is what I normally use day to day, and they basically have all the bells and whistles. They've been doing it since the beginning of time. So they're like an operating system for your photography. PixieSet, it's kind of a SmugMug-ish wannabe, and it comes down to pricing. But to go in here and change these things, for example, if I want to change my theme, I can go in and say, okay, I like Amazon. Let's explore the themes a little bit. These are all the themes that I have available to me in format. I can pick one. These are well-designed themes too. So if I click in here, I can preview, see what it looks like. Yeah, I like this theme, and then try it, and it will apply it to my images. We'll let it load in. There we go. So now I'm using this theme. So, you know, I don't want to spend too much time on format because they're a sponsor, but they are their main thrust is to make it simple. You know, as I looked through it, and you know, Inside Baseball, as I went through format and I considered them accepting their sponsorship. They are they're a Canadian company. They are a small, hungry upstart that's full of really, really smart people that are in smart younger people, kind of like a Silicon Valley up there, that are just like, okay, we need this feature. Hey, Joe, go build it, and he'll put it in.
Did you do an interview with them?
I'm sorry.
Did you do an interview with them? Did you do a?
No.
Oh,
No.
you haven't done that yet. Okay.
Not yet. No.
I didn't know if you did that.
But the cool thing about Format is, one of the cool things is this little thing at the bottom here. So you may have seen this sort of this chat implementation on lots of websites. These guys are available 24 hours a day to answer your questions.
Wow.
And I tested it at 3 a.m. one day. I sent them a message about something random, and they responded within like 5 minutes. So if you're that person and you need handholding, you're not the Steve Brazill that is building WordPress websites and understands all that stuff, a format.com is, it's kind of it's an option or an alternative to a Pixie Set or a SmugMug.
Very cool.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I know a couple people who use it for their sites. It's almost a Squarespace-y type thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Here's a question you may not know the answer to that I was thinking about as you were talking. Squarespace doesn't do email, though. You have to host your email somewhere else. Will they host your domain for MX records and email? Do you know, or
yes, they do. They absolutely do.
Okay, so that's nice.
So in other words, if I wanted to do photos.frederickvan.com, I could point that subdomain at those guys, or just frederickvansgallery.com. I could point it at them, and they would decipher the MX and do the right thing and show the website.
Nice.
Awesome sauce. Good job. All right.
So Nick is asking privately. He says, "What's the pricing model?" So yes, it does integrate with Pricing Labs. 1 and 2. Don't ask me which ones it integrates with. 2, the pricing model is a monthly fee. The promo that they're running on TWiP right now is they started at 2 weeks free and 25% off once you subscribe. I pushed them and they extended it to a full month free. So 30 days free. And then if you decide that you want to keep the service, they'll turn it on and knock 25% off the subscription price forever. So it's kind of it's kind of a no-brainer deal if you're in the world for that kind of, or in the market for that kind of service.
And actually, I'll add one more thing, because like I say, I have a couple friends that use it, and I was looking at it. It's screamingly fast.
Yeah, it's pretty fast.
Their themes are really quick.
Yeah, I like them. I like them because they're smart, they're nimble, they know what they're doing, and they're focused and they're hungry. A lot of these companies out there today are no longer hungry. So
right.
We beg for features and for fixes and pray for different things to show up. These guys are hungry. So you're like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had boom, 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 and next release you have that feature. So
yeah, they're working on it. Oh, that's cool. All right.
Yeah, it is cool.
All right, so I'm going to take over the screen here. So what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about Luminar. And Luminar is a Skylum company, and which used to be MacFun. And I ran into them at WPPI. Steve and I got to go to a sort of product reveal of some of their new stuff. And since then, I've been playing with it. And it's a standalone plugin for Lightroom. You can access it through Capture One. You can bring in one image at a time. The benefits are it's even more halfway between like a Capture One and Photoshop. It gives you a little bit more layer control. You can bring in borders. You can bring in textures. You can drop all that stuff in there. It doesn't have a database. It doesn't have a DAM. So it doesn't really manage your assets. They're supposed to be coming out with something this year, but we're waiting to see that. But it has a couple really cool effects. And for a lot of people, it's neat to be able to jump in and see what this thing can do without having to sort of pre-visualize your presets, because that's often hard, because I do this a lot, so I know what my stuff looks like, and I don't have to make the adjustments right off. Luminar already has that in there. So at the bottom, you can bring an image in. They've got all these preset categories. They're very aggressive at giving you new presets, so you can come in there and you can pick some. And at the bottom, you can see what your presets look like. Some of them are a bit extreme. Some of them are nice. They're just basic toning, things like that. That's really neat. And it does work a little bit differently than what we're used to in, say, Lightroom and Capture One, is that you have to turn on a filter. So when it first comes in, this palette over here is not filled in. Usually it's blank unless you've pre-picked a filter to add. But what I really like is the level of control that I can add to little things. Like if I want to add a texture or an overlay, I can do that. See this open up down here? I can go say load a texture. Now, normally I would do this in Photoshop, but if you're not super Photoshop savvy, this kind of helps you get down the road. So let's say I want to add this little grungy pattern there. So that's going to apply that over my image. I can control the amount that I want that to be, positive or negative, if you notice. I can even go in here and hit the brush, and I can brush it where it says paint or erase. If I start painting, it'll just add it wherever I want it. Let's just add it to the whole thing again. And if I want to erase it just on them, I'm not a huge fan of textures if they're overused. So, just be careful with them. This is kind of heavy-handed right now. And then let's say you want to put a border on there. Let's see, I have some borders, or let's see, various. Let's do what is that? It's blocked. I can't see the top of my frame. Let's see. Let's try.
You actually know what you're doing there, Troy?
I do, and this is the wonderful thing about doing live demos, right? It's like,
you need a manual. I could get a manual.
Where's the thing?
He's pulling the PDF up as he speaks.
I heard this Luminar thing was cool, but now I don't know.
Oh no, yeah, it's all user. Where's my damn borders? Yeah, well, they're in here, so I could apply here. We'll do this one. Let's see what this one does. There we go. And then I can control whether that layer, how it blends, whether it's a darken or it's a lighten or it's a burn effect. And so you can really play with that quite a bit. That's one of the features that I like. The other thing, let me turn this layer off. When you bring in an image, you have this AI option. And let me actually take you back. Well, here, let me finish this and I'll take you back here. If I bring this image into open with Luminar, and you can edit raw files or JPEG files, it doesn't really care. It'll do both. And then you have, this is a little bit of an AI intelligence. So you add this AI filter, and then depending on how much you add, where did it go? It goes at the bottom. There it is. You can boost it. And it's going to look at your image and it's going to start making those adjustments. So it's a little bit like what Lemur did, right? With a slider. And it's pretty impressive. It does a pretty good job.
You mean like Lemur in terms of being smart about its adjustments and looking at the actual image versus just a grayscale slab that it's trying to get?
Correct.
Yes. So the AI filter recognizes this is a person, or there's blue sky, or, it's a tree and a blue sky and green grass. And so when you slide that, immediately it just starts to get better. Everything in Luminar, you can you can paint it in or out. You could also create a layer and then bring these tools in on top of that and paint them in and out. So the level of control is vast without having to understand smart objects and layer masking and all those kind of things that we do in Photoshop. It's again, they've sort of simplified it so it's a little bit easier for you to get into. But one of my favorite features about this, let me close that one, and you can open up as many instances as you like, is this sun ray. And basically what the sun ray does is it allows me to bring in these little specular highlights. I don't know if you can.
And they look so real.
Oh my gosh, they look amazingly good. Actually, there's a better image.
And you saying that, Troy, it has a lot of weight because you're a wedding shooter with what, 20 plus years under your belt?
Yeah.
Right. Add it to that silhouette on the bottom right.
No, this is actually this image right here. I think is the one that we want to play with. I'll show you why. So it's smart in its layering in the way that the rays come through.
Oh, you cheater! You're taking a Warped Tour shot.
Well, yeah, it's bitching.
They were pretty good.
They were really good.
They were pretty good. Yeah.
They never held still, which was crazy cool.
No, the guy with the bandana was in the air the whole time.
And I didn't get any. Thank you very much.
I did.
I know you did because you're better at it than me. All right, so let's go ahead and add our sun ray. Now, look what it did right there on the sign. As soon as it detected that there's light there, I'll move this thing around. So I could put one back here in the corner. It'll look like. See, it looks like it's coming through the beams. I can put one off frame. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just take it and I'll bring it like off the frame outside so it looks like I'm getting a little flare. I don't want it to look fake. I can make it look like his head is
and
glowing.
It's adjustable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, look, I'll make his head glow. But let's say you take it just off frame like so. And I like to turn down the number of rays so it's more like a little flare. And how predominant it is. And it seems kind of crazy, but I use it for that 99% of the time. That is my favorite look. It has a ton of other things, and I like how they've organized them in the catalog. Like, here's your essential adjustments, your raw developer, your tone structure, and here's your creative stuff. If you want to add a golden hour color, if you want to add a matte look, you just click on it. There it is. Here's your adjustments. Or you have your categories down here. And all these are from them. All these categories down here, I just loaded more presets. And it kind of gets you closer. It just gets you closer to kind of like what your vision is, especially if you're not sure what you want that to be. So let me go back and Steve wanted me to try it on a different image. Let's see what that does.
Troy's Luminar better than Lightroom? Like, can you exist in a Luminar Capture One world?
Oh yeah, as long as you have Capture One, because Luminar doesn't have a database. So Luminar
no DAM, but they are planning on releasing a DAM second half of this year. But and Troy and I have seen it. The DAM looked really good.
Yeah. As far as workflow,
we've seen it, but it like I'm just curious. Is it? Looks is one thing. You can design a UI that looks great all day as Microsoft, but it's the horsepower underneath that UI that is that's important for digital asset management. Is it? Are you going to be able to get the photo mechanic type performance out of it? You think?
We don't know. I mean, you have to look at the way their software works now. So like Aurora HDR. And
Which
Luminar.
Was notorious. The Luminar and Mac Fun products are great and they look gorgeous, but they were notorious for not being the most performance.
Luminar, in my experience, was not screaming fast.
Right.
It's fast. No, it's really fast. Which one did you want me to do, Steve?
The bottom right.
This one?
Yeah. Throw a sunbeam behind him.
Yeah. Okay. They're really fast. Even Aurora HDR is really fast.
Well, and they just released an update that was specifically geared at speed.
Yeah. And to be clear, just so that everybody kind of understands, it's a one image at a time editor, which is fine. And I like that. I like that it does that because it lets me, I tweak all of my images in Capture One. I get them super, super, super close. And then if I'm like, I want to add grain to this, I can throw it into Luminar, add a grain layer to it, bring it back, and it's a layered PSD, and I'm done. And I'm happy with that. And that's just sort of an easy way for me to finish it without getting crazy and going into Photoshop, which I just don't want to spend more time.
So stick that where the sun would be in the bottom right corner coming behind that.
Yeah, I can put it down there. I can make it really warm.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And see, I don't like if you get too many, then it looks really fake, but I like to turn that down. And then the look, just kind of how strong it's going to be. And then the sun, this adjustment here for the sun, that's actually, let me bring that up. Like that's the center of that. So I can, it's kind of hard to see what it's doing, but it's the glow radius of like that center point.
Right.
But if you put it behind them, it knows like, oh, this is darker and this is the light. So I'm going to make it glow out of there. You can just move it around. And there's images that I put a lot of these in. If I do an engagement session like the image that I showed here, like this particular image, I'll put one in the trees, super subtle, just really subtle. And that way my couple can see what I maybe saw with my eye, but the camera didn't quite capture it, or maybe there wasn't enough dust or something. I'm not going to throw dust up in the air to catch that. But it's just a way to get your image from point A to point B with a little bit more tweaking. And they're not expensive. I think it's 69 or 79 bucks for Luminar. And they're constantly pushing out new content all the time.
Which is great, by the way. I'm so glad to see these software companies not walking in Adobe's footsteps with the subscription stuff. And I miss the days. I mean, like, the old me is saying, man, I miss the days when I could just walk into a Comp USA and buy a box of software and own it. Remember those days?
Yeah.
Boxed software.
In the chat, I'm going to throw it in there real quick. We have IEPPV has a discount code for $10 off any of the Luminar products. So like the Aurora HDR or the Luminar.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'll throw that in there real quick. It's real complicated. It's IEPPV 2018.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Almost typed $109 off.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Paying people.
All right. Steve, what's your next thing, Steve? What are you going to talk about next?
So my next thing is audio hijack.
Nice.
Before I do, though,
I've been looking forward to this, Steve. I got my. This is the wine is for, because I need to understand audio hijack.
But before we do, here's 2 images in Photo Lemur.
Nice.
Here's one. So you got before, after. It does not do a great job on white balance. So he's still really weirdly colored. But other than that, some noise reduction, I can make that work. This one's a little different. This one, he's orange. I don't mind that he's orange, but it's actually didn't do horrible. His face is still clipped. I could fix that easily. It's a good starting point. So
maybe they don't have a concert AI profile.
It's a weird genre to auto fix stuff, but
it is.
Right. Yeah, that's shot under. I mean, the lighting conditions that you shoot under, Steve Brazill, are probably the most extreme on the in the solar system, I would say.
Yeah, and you've done it, so you, me, and Troy have got to shoot a concert together. The three of us would have a blast.
Yeah, we'd be chasing you. That's
no. You guys could easily hold your own. So let me show you.
You can't move. I want to be over there.
Yeah, and then there's that. Well, you always just end up on the wrong side of the stage.
You know what? This year, that's not happening. That is not going to happen this year. This year, I'm gonna be kicked out because I'm going to get some good shots.
So this is audio hijack, and let me explain first what audio hijack is. Here's the demo of this is very quick in comparison. But the idea of audio hijack, it's been around for a long time. I've been using audio hijack for over 10 years. It's a utility that enables you to capture audio from your computer, from your Mac. And it does it from virtually any source. I mean, that's the beauty really of audio hijack. Whatever it is, any application that is running that has audio. So that would mean if you want to record your Skype calls, if you want to record an audio stream from Safari, you can record straight from Safari. You can save audio from hardware devices. So if you have a microphone or a video capture device or a mixer, not only that, but I've never done this, but it will if you really wanted it to. You can record all the audio sources playing on your computer, applications, microphones, whatever, all at the same time. So that's audio hijack. And here's how it works. It's so stupidly easy. Let me show you. So I've got 3 windows open right now. I'm going to close 2 of them just so that you see the base window. Okay. This is the base audio hijack window where you set up your capture sessions. I've got just application audio here. This one's set up for one application. I've got one for my podcast. I've got one for a podcast if I only want to record what's in Chrome instead of Safari. And then this one I use all the time, actually. So let's start here. This I use for testing my audio. So I have an input device. And if I click it, you can see it's recording from my Shure Digital, left channel, right channel. I can get into advanced settings, right? I can choose different audio devices. I can use the camera, the built-in microphone. I then have both a peak VU meter and the old-fashioned VU meter with needles, analog. And then I have the output so that I can hear myself when it's on. And all I have to do, this isn't going to record anything. It's not going to do anything. I just hit start the session, and you'll see that the VU meters now are running. And I can see my level right there as I talk very easily. I can see it on any of these as I talk. That's just a basic audio test that I use, right? But what's really cool is when you get a little more complex. So this is a basic application audio. For example, I could record Zoom. What's happening in Zoom right now? I have all kinds of advanced settings, so I could split different audio to different channels. I can have a limiter. I can have all kinds of stuff there. And I can turn any of these blocks that you see on or off. So if I turn this session on, I'd see the VU meters. It goes from the app to the VU meters, and then it splits. I have it go to an MP3 file recording with whatever settings I want. I can tag it. I can put artists in for MP3 tags. I can set file limits. Whatever I want. I can choose where to save it. I can control it to death. I can even choose different, I can do uncompressed audio if I want. But at the same time, it separates off and takes all the channels into mono and sends those to my headphone output. So I can record it and I can hear it at the same time. And then the last one is super complex. At the same time, I can record Safari audio. I can boost the volume if I need to. So if I have an audio stream coming in that's too quiet, I can say, you know what, give me 2 times or 3 times or 4 times the volume and let me actually adjust the percentage. It splits off and gives me a VU meter, which then goes and records to an MP3. But at the same time, it plays my audio so that I can hear what's happening. Separately from that, it takes my microphone, gives me a VU meter, and records only my microphone. So if I'm in a Google Hangout, the Safari audio gets recorded as one MP3, and I get recorded as a completely separate MP3. That's audio hijacking. So let me give you an idea really quick of how it works. If you create a brand new session, you can do application audio, DVD audio, kind of whatever you want, podcast, an input device, whatever you need, right? I'll say I want to record an input device. It immediately gives me my Shure microphone to an MP3 file, right? I can drag this and make it bigger. And then over here, I have all of these. So I can choose a different source, different output, so I can go to an output device, because right now I wouldn't be able to hear it, so I can drag this in. I can do built-in effects. So you know what? I want to put an EQ in there so that I can actually adjust the EQ. And not only that, but I want to make it mono. Or swap the channels or whatever I want. I can do low pass filters, volume. I can pan left to right. I can use ducking and syncing and time shifting. I can even do meters like you saw before. So I could do a peak meter in there just so that I can see the meter. And then I have effects galore.
Wow.
Every time I open that, I go, what? So you can do all kinds of fantastic, band EQs or compression. You can do a peak limiter if you want and have all kinds of control on the peak limiter. And at any time, if I say go, well, I better make sure I know where it's recording first so I can go delete it later. This is going to record to the audio hijack folder. Okay. So if I hit go right now, boom, it's now recording. You can see the audio going, and I'm actually hearing an echo because I have this on. So I'm going to turn that off, and it's recording as we speak. That's audio hijack. Kind of a cool little app.
How much does that cost?
So let me ask
a question,
Steve.
Yeah, I'm typing really fast. Go.
What is a what would the average user use this for? A non-podcaster, like
I used it long before I ever podcasted.
Everyone's a podcaster.
Yeah, and I would use it to capture just what I'm talking on my microphone, and I wanted to record something to send to somebody. I had a video, but I wanted to record the audio. I was streaming the video on YouTube, and I wanted to record the audio from it, because any audio that's playing on your computer, you can.
Nick says
record.
$59.
Yeah, it's $59, but you can get it with an app called Fission for $70. And you can get it with Loopback, which is really cool, but it's a little more advanced for $130. And you can even get a podcast bundle for $175. Fission is an audio editing app. So if you don't have an audio editor, you could use something like that.
So Troy, why'd you let Steve talk about cool audio stuff and you said I couldn't?
I did not say you couldn't. You sent me a list of 3 things, and that was
Southern California thing.
And you cheated, and you went to 4. I know
you guys hate Northern California people.
I love Northern California people personally. It was Troy that was being rude and inconsiderate, I think.
Yeah, that was it. That's how it works. Yeah, just the jealousy is just overwhelming.
I love it. Nick is asking, how does Fission compare to Audacity?
I'll be honest with you, I don't use it, but my understanding is it's not going to be as featureful as Audacity.
Or priceful, because Audacity is 100% free.
Right.
Correct.
And it actually works pretty good. Yeah, Audacity is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, so Frederick, that's going to move us over to you. You were going to talk about SmugMug at this point, but...
I will. I'll just blow through it real quick.
Yeah, you can talk about SmugMug.
I like SmugMug.
I know you do.
SmugMug. I like Baldy. Baldy did you see the interview I did with Baldy?
No.
Do you know who Baldy is? Chris?
No. Yeah, the founder.
He is the co-founder. Yeah, he co-founded it with his son. His story is amazing.
And now he does cake.
And now he is eating cake. He's launching Cake, which is an awesome service. Cake.co, I think it's co. Cake.co is a new network that he's launching. And he announced that before. Like I did an interview with Chris McCaskill a week or so before his sons announced that they were buying Flickr, and he didn't even mention it. How dare he?
Yeah,
He didn't mention it. Not a peep. All right. So SmugMug. So SmugMug is cool. So, and I thought I would do the positioning of my demos here. I wanted to kind of keep things thematic. So format.com obviously is a place for you to organize your images and share them and sell them and do that sort of thing. So is SmugMug and PixieSet. So I'm not there's clearly obviously not enough time to go through exhaustively and do a tutorial on how all this stuff works, but I just want to give you an inside look of how I'm using it, which is what Troy asked for, right? All right.
I don't always get what I asked for, do I?
You don't always get what you want, but you get what you need. All right, here we go. All right, so here's a backdoor into my SmugMug here. And just FYI, I don't use SmugMug like most people use SmugMug because I have all these services that I'm a member of, like Format and PixieSet. And literally, I think I have like 5 to 10 different image sharing services that I use. I use this for, like, SmugMug is my back end for sharing images and galleries to people that I've done something for. For example, if I go into, let's look at family here. So I look in family, and you're getting a look inside my family here, right? So we'll take a look at these, and I can say, you know what, I want to take a look at, here's my dad here. I can look at that. I can look at, here's my son and daughter. So I can pull this image up or this up. So here we are with, this is my son and daughter, by the way. So I can pull these images up. And what I do with SmugMug is once I upload my images into the service, I keep them unlisted and private, and I share them with friends and family. So no one publicly ever sees these shots. No one ever sees these shots. And yes, this is my son. He's in his 30s now. So just want to say I still look saying, you know. Yeah, and that's how I use it. But if you go in here, and the cool thing about this is if you go in here and say organize, I just clicked on the organize, it brings you into a completely different UI where I can go in and look at all these images and organize them. I can sort them manually, which means I can drag these images around in here and change the sort order. I can sort them by caption, date taken, modified, uploaded, etc.
So what is the core purpose of SmugMug? Like you're using it for your personal gallery.
Yeah.
What would the average photographer who doesn't have all the other services that you have, what might you use this for?
The SmugMug is a service. Basically, it's kind of like Pixie said, but it is. I look at SmugMug as kind of like the operating system for your images. So once you're done, they have a plugin for Lightroom or Photoshop where you can pump images and sync galleries with SmugMug. So you can operate the whole thing from within Lightroom. But it is a gallery. It is a full-fledged, robust gallery where you can build price lists, galleries, assign price lists to galleries. For example, if you're Troy Miller and you're selling wedding photography, you can build galleries for your brides to go in and favorite images for the final album. If you're a Steve Brazill and you're shooting for bands or concert venues, you could use it to upload your images and provide them with a link. And if the band wants to purchase images, you could have a band price list and a venue price list, and they get charged different fees depending on who the band is and all that.
So can you build landing pages and things like that? So it's pseudo. Okay. So because I use Zenfolio, so it's very similar to that.
It's very, yeah. And in fact, Zenfolio is probably the main, at least these days, is probably the main competitor to a company like SmugMug.
Right. Okay.
So they essentially do very similar things aside, except for Zenfolio. Zenfolio got acquired about 3 or 4 years ago by art.com. So now they're a subsidiary or a department of art.com. SmugMug remained independent, still kicking butt, and bought Flickr.
Right. So it's just it's a way for you to make your images public or create galleries to move to clients where you can sell a product or you can sell access, or it's sort of the virtual showroom for your work kind of thing.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, exactly. It's a virtual showroom for your work. It's a gallery, and like I said, you assign price lists. You can allow people different permissions where you can say, you can set a gallery and say people can download from this gallery, but they can only download low resolution images. Or you could say, hey, I want people to download all the images, or high resolution, whatever the highest resolution available. You can do all that stuff. So,
and with clients, at least in the wedding industry, clients are constantly asking, for digital files. This is a way for you to provide a file at a level that you can control.
Exactly. Yeah.
And share with their family and that kind of thing.
What remains to be seen right now is what SmugMug is going to do with Flickr and the Flickr integration. Because Flickr, as you guys remember, was like the 300-pound gorilla and synonymous with photography. It was like
until they lost everybody's information over and over and over and over again.
Exactly. I mean, that was just one of the problems that Flickr had. I mean, so the information breaches, failure to execute, trying to get sold to Verizon and failing. When I worked at Yahoo, when I was at Yahoo, I remember that, there's lots of stories from Yahoo, but I remember there were lots of marketing and acquisition missteps that happened. For example, Yahoo had the opportunity to purchase Amazon at one point when Amazon was tiny. They had the opportunity to purchase eBay and didn't at one point because they had not invented here syndrome. So they decided to build these services themselves. And now they're they've been acquired by one of the small little companies that they didn't pay attention to. So now SmugMug has acquired this giant entity. So,
Frederick, Steven's asking a question. Can you host images with links to embedded images at websites with SmugMug? So I'm wondering if he's asking, can you have images on SmugMug in a gallery and then link them into a website, maybe like embed them with links back to SmugMug?
You can. It depends on the permissions that you set within SmugMug. So within SmugMug, you can say this image is accessible to the public, kind of like if you think about YouTube, with public, unlisted, and private levels of security. Public means you can share a link to anybody on the world or in the solar system, and they can click on that link and see the image. So you can do that. Or unlisted, only people that have that link can see it. Or private means only people that have credentials to see that image or that gallery can see it.
Right.
So you can do all those levels. So.
Right. Yeah. Very powerful. I mean, I know that I use Zenfolio. I can also sync them to my iPad and my mobile devices, so I can create galleries and move them with them. I use them in the wedding industry, and I'm sure that SmugMug does the same, that I'll go shoot at an event and I'll talk to a florist, for example, and I'll say to that florist, hey, if you'd like images from this day, just let me know. I'll create a gallery, password protect it, send them that link, and they have access to whatever resolution files that I want to give to the florist so that they can use them out there.
Yeah. It's interesting. And one of the questions I was asking the Adobe guy is like when I interviewed Josh Haftel was, there's so many options out there, and it used to be easy, right? It used to be like, all those suck over there. There's 3 that are okay. And
there's one,
I'll choose the one from those 3. Now there's Google with Google Photos. There's Apple with Apple Photos, and they want to put your stuff in the cloud for a fee. There's Adobe, they want your images, and now you got SmugMug and Flickr and whatever they come out after they kind of figure out their merger, and Zenfolio. It goes on and on and on. So there's all these great solutions, but there's we have very little guidance on which one to choose and how to choose it. And then you overlay onto that backup, because like Troy, you and I were talking when you were out here, you have all your images in a cloud, which is scary because they're in the cloud, and you're relying on these nerds that are, to protect your images, and they could all go away at any moment, which means you have to have a local backup, multiple local backups. And how do you do that? Do you buy Synology? Do you buy Drobo? Do you, walk them over to Steve Brazill's house? And underneath his printer? What do you do?
Yeah, it's definitely complicated. Yeah, there is no doubt about it. I would say that any service that we do, across the board is stick with one that provides you with the service you need to run your business. Right. Yeah. Like SmugMug and Zen, they're the 2 top right now. I mean, they're going to be around for a while. They're there to support your business. So I try to stick with a company that I think is going to support my business. If I need tech support or I need something, I want to go to somebody that's like, hey, yeah, we'll take care of you, because they understand.
Right.
But I'm also sort of a software addict. So if there's something new coming out, I'm like, ooh, Lemur, I'm going to go play with that, because it may be the next cool thing. So,
yeah.
Okay, cool. So are you good with that? I'm going to.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to jump into Aurora HDR, which admittedly is probably the piece of software I am the least familiar with. But every time I play with it, I am just that much more impressed with the level of control that I have. And, one thing that I believe about HDRs and panos and focus stacking and all these kind of things, these are tools as photographers that we can use on a daily basis in our shooting environment without having to have a heavy duty tripod and specialty equipment with us anymore. I mean, you can do an HDR literally with 2 images. And I think they're...
you can do it with 1 image.
Well, kind of. Scott Kilby, I think, came out and did a report where he talked about how when you shoot, you could really just kind of look at your scene and say, ooh, the sky's blown out, but my foreground's good. I'm going to do 1 underexposed shot. That's just going to be for my sky. There's so much latitude in our newer cameras now. We don't need 5 at 2-stop increments.
Depending on the scene.
Right, right. And there's just so much information in those files. So what I'm going to show you is just a little bit of why I've been playing with Aurora HDR. Now you can do HDRs in Lightroom, but if you know my feeling of Lightroom, I'm not spending a lot of time in there. Plus, when you do an HDR in Lightroom, it's a proprietary DNG that is just not fun to play with. It gets giant and huge, and then you're stuck in the Adobe ecosystem, which again I'm not a huge fan of. So what I have here is I have a set of images. Now you can do this a couple different ways. You can tune these images ahead of time and then take them into Aurora HDR and then layer them together if you want to do that. Or what I do, you can do it out of Lightroom. You can drag these into Aurora if you want, or here, I'm just going to open them in Aurora. So it's going to basically take the raw file, push them over into Aurora. It's going to see what I have here, turn on alignment. You have a couple options, deghosting, chromatic aberrations, things like that. And it's brilliantly smart. So all of these things work really well. And that's why the hand holding of HDRs is amazing now. If you just set your camera into HDR mode or the bracketing mode, whatever, to 1 or 2 stops, hold really still, continuous shoot, high speed, you got your 3 shots, 2 shots, 5 shots, whatever, you walk away and you're done.
Yeah.
And this is gonna not work for me. Is that what it's gonna do? Is it gonna, oh no, it's loading. It's processing right here. So take HDRs and use them. Use them all the time. I use them in weddings all the time. It always seems that the venue that I'm shooting at decided to build their brand new venue with the sun that sets behind the bride and groom because somehow they think that that's romantic. But the guests have to stare into the sun. I have to stare into the sun. We're all blinded. So I need I need an HDR to do that. Yeah. Very much like Luminar, right? You have your presets down here. Trey Ratcliffe is a huge supporter of Aurora HDR. I know he uses this quite a bit.
Yeah, he's a part owner in it.
Oh, is he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Yep.
For all of the presets that you can come in, you can choose the level that you want that to be. Very much the same ways that we saw in Luminar. I'm just going to come in because I want to bring the blacks down a little bit. I love how this keeps everything looking realistic unless I really, really push it beyond, where it is. A little bit of saturation. And I got to tell you, this scene to me, when I was standing there, was one of the most vibrantly colored things I've ever seen. It was absolutely amazing. This is a storm that had just cleared, and I actually have on my Vimeo account, Spicyjello's Vimeo account, I have an infrared time lapse of this storm.
Oh yeah,
as it built and rained and then dissipated, and it was the coolest thing. And I had no idea how to shoot a time lapse at the time, so it was rough. It was really rough. All of these settings in here, you can use them. You can use them in layers. So I can bring in a layer. I can add a new adjustment layer. That layer can be, like real heavy vibrance. And then I can grab the tool and I can brush that layer in or out. And remember, oh, here we go. We can change the blending modes, darken or multiply. All of this within the HDR. Now, I wish I could show you like all the really cool tricks and all the really cool tools, why it's super awesome. But I'm learning this thing, this week, last couple of weeks kind of event. So I'm very excited about it. I wish I knew more. I wish I could show you more of the killer features that are in here. But
how do you feel about the speed? Is it fast enough for your workflow? Well, obviously
it is.
You're using it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, like right here, I mean, in real time, you can see that I'm making adjustments, and it's very happy. It's hesitant a little bit, but that could be because we've got the Zoom meeting running, and I've got all this other stuff in. Every time I've gone in here and played with it, I've been super stoked. So, and then you can output this in 2 ways. You can either send it out as directly to like a SmugMug or 500px or whatever, or you can export it as an image. And you can also save it as an Aurora HDR proprietary file, which saves basically all your adjustments. So it's kind of like having a RAW right there. So you can do both.
And in my experience, it's super fast. And keep in mind, you've got 3 RAW files combined in this thing.
Right.
So it's not a small file either, but it's pretty real time in my experience.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, like, here we go. Like these 3 right here. These are 3 bigger files. So if we open that with Aurora HDR. See, now what Skylum needs to do is they need a focus stacking piece of software, because that would round this out, because then I could have, you know, the Luminar for the editing. I could have the HDR in here, and then focus stacking.
Yeah, Nick brings up a good point. Like
Oh, this is gonna take.
Do you have a very fast computer over there? Because that has been, you know, when I first started, and I did some promotional videos for Aurora, and I love Aurora and Luminar. I use both of them, but the complaint that I keep hearing is performance. You know,
They've improved a lot in the recent updates. They have improved a lot, and I run this on my laptop as well. So this is this tower is an iMac i7 recent iMac, not a Pro. It's an iMac with like 16 gigs RAM, SSD drive. So it's spunky. You know, I running Capture One, which is big and robust and powerful, and 100,000 images in the library. It's faster, but this is very usable.
It's been fast on my. I don't even know how old my MacBook Pro is, but probably 2-3 years, and it's probably 2 years, and it's fine on mine.
Yeah. It's I do most of this work that you see here is my personal stuff, my landscape and my play work, and I do all that on my laptop, and that's where I do most of my editing, and I don't see any hesitation. When it comes to focus stacking, and I'm not going to launch the app because I'm not like Frederick. I'm not going to demo off the tray. Affinity Photo has the ability to do some really.
He just went.
what was that?
To you. He did that.
I may have done that a little bit.
Troy, don't make me drop the mic and walk off and hang up.
Okay.
Steve Brazill.
Affinity Photo is really amazing for doing your focus stacking. A deep breath there.
Hey, don't stick your hand into the lion's cage and expect not to draw back a nub. I'm just saying.
I'm trying so hard to keep us on track. I'm trying so hard.
I know.
Yeah, you've already lost that,
so
dude.
Great not having to be the
No, children, let's stop focusing.
I love it. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so to repeat, if you're going to do focus stacking, Affinity Photo does some pretty cool stuff. So it's sort of a Photoshop replacement. It does HDR and it does focus stacking and it does all that kind of stuff. And I use it for focus stacking, or Helicon Focus for focus stacking. You got to be able to do all that stuff, man. You got to be able to know what tool you're going to pull out when you're there. So
that's right. That's what she said. No, I'm not gonna. This is not going on YouTube, so I can talk like that, right?
It is going on Vimeo, though. We are going to put that out there.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll fix it. You rat. Now I got to edit that.
You do not have to.
You do need to practice your Final Cut Pro skills, Troy.
There you go.
What are you saying? Well, we were going to go to Steve, but with that, we're done. That's on that bombshell, as they say on top.
We were just going to wrap it right there.
No.
Frederick brought the curtain down.
Okay, so we have two more quick sets. So we have Steve's going to talk about two things I can't even pronounce. I don't even know what those are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to those. I have no idea.
These are really, really short little Mac utilities. They have things like one of these for the PC. I don't know if they have the other one. I just shared the wrong. No, I shared the right screen. Okay. So first one I'm going to talk about is Gestimer or Gestimer. It's a small little Mac utility. And it is just freaking awesome. And what it is the ability for you to create short-term timers. So if you look up in my menu bar up here,
Oh, I need that.
you'll see the 75 degrees? Well, right next to that is Gestimer. And this is Gestimer, and it just lets you have your reminders, and it's got preferences that are fairly basic. Do you want to open it at login? Do you want to sync your timers? That's kind of cool through reminders. And do you want to show it in the menu bar, which obviously I do. That's all the settings. And you'll also notice under here, I can add a reminder from here, but if you click the plus, it doesn't add one. It teaches you how to add one. And it shows you reminders here, and you can delete old ones or delete all of them. So watch if I click the plus symbol, it tells me what to do. It doesn't create one. It says drag and drop. So here's how it works. I simply grab it and go, you know what? I need a timer that is 1 hour and 45 minutes.
Oh, that's slick.
When I let go, it goes, okay, what do you want to call it? Oh,
Switch to Frederick.
get to lunch. And boom, it's done. And you'll notice up here now it's counting down 1 hour and 44 minutes, and it'll tell me when. And at any time I can go see them and I can delete it. But here's, I'm one of those weird people that it would drive me nuts to have a timer that's 33 minutes, not 30. So when you click on it, if you hold the option key and drag down, you'll notice that it moves in 5 minutes. I'm weird for a lot of reasons. It moves in 5-minute increments. So you can easily choose what you want.
Gestimer.
Can you do more than one timer?
And it's just, let me cancel that one. Boom. It's just an awesome little app. That's the whole app. But what I use it for is, you know, I come in the office at 11 o'clock, but I know that I got to be somewhere at noon. I know I've got 30 minutes to work. You get wrapped up in writing code or doing something, and you forget. They're not long. This isn't calendar reminders. These are short-term reminders. They work absolutely great. So second one.
TWiP needs that. TWiP needs that to keep us on the hour schedule. That's what that's.
Yeah. It's on the App Store. It's $4, and you can do more than one reminder.
Oh yeah, you can. I can. So if I come down and I drag, and let's just say 1 hour and 26 reminder.
I bought it first. I'm just saying.
Boom. I know we're costing each other money. And then I'll do another one at 16 minutes.
The guy that types first on new blog posts.
So now I've got 2 of them. The first one is going to count down. You'll see it says 17 minutes up here, but you can see them both in there.
Oh, that's killer.
Okay, so that is Gestimer. The second one I'm going to talk about is, and just so that you know, let me show you this.
I'm setting a timer for how long Steve's allowed to talk.
There's how you spell Gestimer.
GES.
And it's in the Mac App Store.
What does that mean? What is just?
Well, it's something timer. I don't know where the Jess comes from, but it's freaking awesome. So the second one, I've got on an iMac here, and I don't use it a ton on the iMac. I do actually on occasion, but mostly this would be more for laptops. And I used to use something called Caffeine, and now I use amphetamine. So basically, think about it. It's an amphetamine. Okay.
So caffeine.
Oh, you know what?
Drug?
John just mentioned in the chat, it's a play on just timer. That would make sense.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. So here, if you look up here on my menu bar again, it's the second from the end. It looks like a small coffee cup.
Yeah.
And if I right click it, I can say indefinitely for so many minutes, for hours, custom amount of time, only while the app is running. I can do quick settings, meaning allow display to sleep. And what this does, it's amphetamine for your computer. So it prevents your computer from going to sleep. I hate when I'm on battery on a laptop and I turn and I talk to somebody and I come back and the freaking thing's gone to sleep and I got to log in again, or something that was running in the background stops.
So useful. Yeah.
Right? So quick settings, I can immediately say, put it to, let it work, but allow the display to sleep, or allow the screensaver, or enable my triggers. We'll get into that one. So to show the session time. And if I go into preferences, you are going to be freaking out. This little teeny app.
Because I was going to ask because I use Caffeine, to keep my Mac awake while it's rendering. So I'll
Yes.
let it render and leave. And if you don't turn it on, your computer's asleep and everything stops.
Everything stops. So caffeine's the same thing, but this has way, way more settings.
Let me just interject this little thought right here.
Okay.
We're photographers, and this is the kind of stuff we have to learn how to do, right? Just to get through the day.
Yeah.
That's a little depressing.
So notice here, display, you can allow the display to sleep, but the computer stays awake, or your screensaver, right? But watch this, triggers. Enable triggers. Add a trigger. And you can do triggers that, oh, you know what? If I show up in this place and on this Wi-Fi, or if I start this app, or during these hours.
Shut up.
So you could literally say, if I go into the office and I join the office Wi-Fi, don't let my computer go to sleep.
Okay, Steve, you could drop the mic. That's it.
Yeah, this thing's awesome. It has battery settings if you're on a battery. It has hotkeys, notifications. You can change the appearance from a coffee cup to a pill, right? And notice the pill is turning, so you know when it's on, right?
Wow.
And so for me, if you look up here, it's a coffee cup, but if I click it, now it's an overflowing coffee cup, and it's on, and the computer won't go to sleep. And that, my friends, is amphetamine. And
just installed it.
That is cool. And you can, Steve, you can set that, because the problem I have with caffeine, I think caffeine is like the
super basic,
less evolved version of that, right?
And free. Caffeine's free.
Right, caffeine's free, and you have to remember to take your computer off of caffeine for it to go to sleep, or else it's just going to be on.
Oh, and actually, you know what? Amphetamine is free. But
free
yes, you have to turn caffeine off. This one you can do triggers, timers. It's pretty cool.
You can say, you know what? I want you to be on amphetamines for the next 3 or 4 hours or something, and then it'll deactivate itself at 4 hours, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, there's a second app I have to install tonight. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. That's why I'm here.
All right. Very cool. All right. You've justified your existence. Look at that.
For once in my life.
Quick question, a completely unrelated question for John. How to invoke dark mode on his Mac.
You want me to show you?
General settings, and then you're going to go to under general. Go to your system preferences, go to general, and at the top, just choose dark mode.
It's a checkbox.
Yeah, just check dark mode.
Let me turn that on. Let me see what that looks like. General.
Yeah.
Where?
All right.
See it? It's in general? Oh, there it is. Dark menu and bar.
Very, very high up at the top.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see why I didn't turn it on. Yeah.
And then, Frederick, are you going to talk about Pixie Set? Is that your next one?
I can. What do you have? Because we only have a couple minutes left.
I'm done. I've done mine. Steve has done his. You were the last one to go. So
I'm the last man.
Talk about Pixie Set or whatever little piece of software you have, and then you could make your brief announcement.
Cool. Let me just talk a little bit about Pixie Set first. I want to show folks how I use it, because I was using Pixie Set before I started using. I was using Pixie Set in conjunction with SmugMug. I was sort of using SmugMug as my storage repository and Pixie Set as the front-facing. This is the link that I'm going to share with people for galleries for different kinds of shoots. So I want to show you guys an example of a Pixie Set gallery and when I used it. Let's bring this up. All right, so here's Pixie Set. We're inside of a gallery. So this is a gallery that I shot when I had a chance to go to the White House back in 2015. This is for the President's State of the Union back in January of 2015. And
is that when your photo was that you printed the image critique on TWiP Pro?
That was a different trip. So
oh, okay.
This is a trip, I think maybe before or after that, I'm not sure. But very similar to Format and SmugMug, where you're in your gallery and you can click and drag and move shots around. It's all the same. We've all seen this before. But I just want to give you guys a look at something that I would use. So if I go in here and I click share, I can create and compose an email that's going to go out to a client. And this is the email that you're looking at on the right side here. So the State of the Union, POTUS 2015. There's the hero shot that I picked. These folks are YouTubers that were interviewing the president. And this button shows up in the email that they get along with my social links, etc. They can click that. Very beautiful, well-designed email. It's very cool. Down here on the left, if I click collection password and download pin, it adds these two fields to the email where people can go in. And when they get this email, if they use these credentials, they can download the entire gallery. So in the case of this particular event, that's what I did. When I sent this off to Alex Lindsay, who was the guy behind the scenes pulling strings for this event, I enabled him to download all of the full resolution images from this, because this was not a, I want you to pay for each print type deal. And then I click send me a copy, so I know, I know what's going out to folks. And you can get a direct link to the gallery and all that stuff. So it's very clean. This is what I liked about Pixieset, is the fact that it's very clean, very straightforward. And if I get out of this, let's go back to the gallery here.
And so, Frederick, you're using Pixieset to share sets
like
of
client
photos.
proofing?
Exactly. So let's clarify, I was using Pixieset to share. Okay. I have since, sorry, Pixieset, ended my subscription to Pixieset, which I think I have another couple months left on it. But I've ended it because I'm right now considering, do I want to move all my assets over to a format.com or SmugMug or smugmug.com. I don't need all three. So, but I wanted to show you guys how I was using Pixieset and give you a kind of a look into what Pixieset is. If we go in and view this gallery, so you can move things around, add different sets. Like Troy, in your line of work, you would add different sets for, getting ready, the first kiss, the reception, yada, yada. That's where all those would go. You can change the cover, pick a different image to be the cover, and then view the gallery. So if I view the gallery here, this is what people will see when they click on that view gallery link in the email. They'll land here and they'll see my title, all this good stuff, and then scroll down. The cool thing about this is it does this technique called lazy load, where in order to be fast, it loads the images as you scroll. So it's not loading images that are off screen yet. It loads them when they're just about to show up on screen. If you see them showing up at the bottom there, it's loading them quickly. It's hard to see on my screen right now because I have a ridiculously fast internet connection. Sorry. But
every conversation that has to come up, doesn't it?
Everyone.
Jeez. At least he didn't say it's a gigabit up and down. At least he didn't bring that up.
Oh, at least he didn't bring
up
up
and down. It's a gigabit up and down. Sorry.
At least he didn't bring up a speed test app.
I'll do that next. And it is fiber, But these are all famous YouTubers, and I shared this gallery with all these folks as well. These are folks, you talk about followers, they've got followers. These are the folks that are millions and millions of followers and can move markets with one tweet.
Wow.
And this person, I forget what her name was, but she got momentarily famous with the president because when they sat down, I don't know if I have that image of her with the president, but when she sat down with the president, and this is me pretending to be the president, by the way, but when they sat down with the president, she asked the president, what did she say? She said, "Let me ask you a question about your first wife."
Oh my gosh, great.
And she said this live on national TV, and the president said, "Well, as far as I know, I've only had one." So that was interesting. So this was a kind of a behind the scenes inside the White House of all the setup that we did to prepare for the president to do that. Point is, with Pixieset, they made it easy because I went in. They have a Lightroom plugin as well. Went in, made all my edits, and uploaded everything directly to Pixieset from within Lightroom. And then once that was done, shared all the images out to all these YouTubers and the crew that wanted to see themselves inside the White House.
Wow.
And that was it. And there's Marine One landing. Check it out.
So it's kind of similar to a shoot proof or a Zenfolio or something like that.
Very similar. Yeah, that's part of the issue because all these are all services that are they're very similar, and they have very, very similar feature sets that you just have to get in and play with them to see what clicks with your brain before you make a decision.
Right.
But they all work relatively well. So
Nice.
And that's Pixie Set. And there's President getting interviewed right there.
Nice.
All right. And that's it.
Awesome. Well, that's
seems
it. I
like
think that's
that was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. We're no longer there. So.
Well, I think that covers pretty much all of our software that we wanted to highlight. I mean, just to kind of wrap up this whole software idea, these are things that for me, I know for Steve, Frederick, some of them he's in transition and has used them daily. Might use them more. These are things that you need to get our businesses down the road. I mean, this is only a small fraction of the software that we have. I mean, I think any one of us could spend 8 hours, and anybody who does this all day long could do that. So test out those softwares, play with those. I know that, let's see, Frederick, could you use in conjunction with your main photo?
Don't let me forget to give my announcement, by the way.
No, I know. I'm just,
and real quick, before you do finish, for those that are interested, if you go to stevebrazill.com/IEPPV, you just have to put IEPPV. It'll load this page. Well, I'll leave it up for a week or so, and this gives you links to all the software that I mentioned. So stevebrazill.com/IEPPV.
I own all those now.
Overachiever.
Do you really?
I do. I bought them and downloaded them, and right now my timer just told me that we're done. So
there we go.
With that, again, before Frederick's quick announcement, Steve, you can be contacted at just any Steve Brazill. Just search Steve Brazill and you can find Steve Brazill pretty much.
Yeah, Steve Brazill. It's like Brazill with 2 L's. It's that on Twitter and Instagram, but it's Steve Brazill Photography on Facebook, and follow me and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And then many of you already know me. You see me in the TWiP Pro Community and at IEPPV, but you can always find me at Spicyjello.com or Instagram Spicyjello and look at all my stuff that I'm blowing up. And then Frederick Van Johnson at thisweekinphoto.com and TWiPPro.com. That's the TWiP Pro Community.
Yep.
So track him down, follow him, talk to him a lot, and then he has an announcement I think he wants to make.
And I'll be quick. I'll be really quick. This is the first time I've ever talked about this publicly. So talked about it ad nauseum with my girlfriend Nicole. But
who's in here today?
Nicole is in there watching. Hey Nicole, she's watching, making sure I don't mess up. So
he's going to remind you.
Oh no, she's watching, waiting for you to mess up.
Waiting for you to mess up. Okay, so what is coming down the pike, probably within the next couple of weeks, is a brand new initiative /show. So the impetus of this was Steve Brazill. Steve Brazill was doing Behind the Shot, and he's no longer doing Behind the Shot. So I had to figure out, okay, what's next for TWiP after all the different hosts that we had on the network, and we're no longer doing kind of a hosting metaphor. We're doing this thing called Watch Me Work with Troy Miller from time to time. Also, there's TWiP Talks, which is a talk show or an interview type show. So I gave it a lot of thought, and what I decided to do was launch a brand new entity that combines all of those things into a show called The Creative, which is, I'm actually saying those words for the first time here on Troy Miller's webinar. So The Creative, and what The Creative is, it's a combination of all those things together. Plus it raises the level from just talking about photography with photographers to all of creativity. So in other words, instead of just talking to photographers, we'll be talking to people that do pottery, people that do paint, artists, musicians. We'll be talking to musicians. We'll talk poets, all these different kinds of things with the same kind of metaphor interview type technique that you've become accustomed to from This Week in Photo, but expanding that out to all creatives or most creatives and to tell their individual stories rather than niching down into just the photography genre. So that's the creative that's coming really soon. I'm excited about it because the more I think about it, the more it gives me the opportunity to not be restricted and not say, well, I can't really talk about, this guy doing painting on the street, even though his stuff looks awesome, because I'm a photography show. Now I've expanded the umbrella out to be all of creatives. So we'll see how it sticks. I think it has the potential to be gigantic, maybe even more impactful than a This Week in Photo, because obviously This Week in Photo is niche and about photography. This is wider, which makes it more challenging and more exciting. So I'm excited to launch it, excited to tell you guys about it.
What's interesting to me about that is, as photographers, when you're learning light, you look at the master painters, right? So even though we do photography, we get inspiration from every type of creative outlet and medium. So looking forward, do you have an ETA?
Yeah, well, the ETA is last week.
Last week? Yeah, there you go.
You know how it goes. So no, it's quick. So it's interesting you asked about ETA. So I'm trying to be a smart human and learn by my past experiences. And what I want to do with this show
Nicole is laughing right now.
Yeah, she is. Yeah. Instead of having, building a show, building an audience for that show, and then going out to hawk advertising for that show, we're going to sign not even sponsors, just sort of company entities that come on to be aligned with the creative before it goes out. So, and the positioning is, hey, you get on the ground floor with this thing, yada, yada, yada. So the cool thing about the creative is I'm taking most of the things that I learned over the decade of This Week in Photo, applying them to this brand new larger thing. And that includes the podcast, the YouTube, the TWiP school, the community, all that stuff will manifest. And now photographers will have a chance, at least the photographers that interact with TWiP, will have a chance to rub elbows with this person over here that's doing music, doesn't really care about photography that much. Now you can sort of get into their world and their mind of creativity, look at the tools that they use and get inspired by them. Same with painters and any other person that's an artist and that's creating stuff. It's a creative. So
right, because that discipline transcends all borders, really. I mean, whether you could be a writer, the same discipline of getting up and going and finding something creative, whether you're a photographer, we have slumps, we have creative blocks, those kind of things that we have to work through, collaboration with other artists and within each other, the learning community. That's really important. Stephen asks, will the creative supplement or will TWiP supplant? Yeah.
That's a great question. No.
I can pronounce it however I like.
Yeah. Public schools, man. No. So no, it won't.
2 minutes. We got to wrap it up.
It won't supplant TWiP. So basically, if you think about it, the creative, if it goes as planned, will kind of be a upper level show or entity under which one genre of creativity is photography, right? So if you think of creative and then photography and then music and then cooking and then on and on and on. So it just sort of makes everything a little bit bigger and a little bit easier to understand. I think you guys will dig it. It'll be really, really simple and focused.
And let me add one thing, because Frederick said I'm not doing the podcast anymore. The podcast is coming back. I am going to do the podcast. I'm not doing it on TWiP right now, but I'm working on bringing it back. So follow me and you'll know when. But Behind the Shot will be back. Perfect. Good to know. Yes, and we look forward to that because those were amazing.
Cool. Yeah, there's so much cool content out there. It's gonna be amazing to have the different voices. So you have the Steve Brazils, you have the TWiP stuff, the creative stuff that's going on, the Scott Kelbys, the on and on and on. So yeah, there's lots of cool stuff to check out in the coming months. So keep an eye on This Week in Photo and the TWiP Pro Community. We'll announce it first in the TWiP Pro Community, obviously, and then we'll push it out to the greater list in the world a little bit later after that.
Yes, fantastic. And we're going to have you back on some IEPPV stuff, so there'll be a chance for you to promote that a little bit too when you get it up and running. So we'll find out what you're doing. Keeping an eye on you. All right.
Yep.
Well, we're going to wrap it up unless anybody has any last minute questions that they want to throw in the panel real quick. I don't see anybody putting anything in there. We're going to say thank you to our hosts for being here, our co-hosts, for Nick being silent in the background and monitoring all your questions. I know that during some of the security talks and passwords, I'm sure that his fingers were on fire. He wanted to chime in. Steve, thank you so much for taking part of your evening and sharing all those amazing tips with us. I know that's just a mere fraction of all the goodies that you have there. And Frederick, you as well. I know that you do a lot of podcasting. You have a lot of info in there, not just in podcasting, but in photography, and you're sharing all that with us too. So
yeah,
I appreciate you guys taking out your time to do that. So, next time that you guys are in the neighborhood, cookies will abound. With that, I say good night and thank you to everybody for being here. Good night, guys.